Hello, everyone, and welcome to Looking Up. Welcome back to Looking Up for our third season opener. Sounds like a baseball game, doesn't it? We are excited to get this going again. We've missed chatting and having our weekly chat sessions and recording sessions, and we are glad to be back in this first week of the new year of 2024. We hope that all of you have had a great holiday season and that you have enjoyed being with family and that you have continued to look up, as that's the purpose for our podcast, is to hopefully point you to look up, as Colossians 3:1-2 talks about, looking up at the things that are heavenly and not things that are just here down here on the earth. And so we're glad to see you again. Glad to get back together. Kathy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I really have missed this.
Yeah, me too. By the way, I'm Carla Moore. This is Kathy Pollard. We are your hosts. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary?
I was wondering what day we started last year. What was our first?
The very first episode aired on the 16th.
Oh, so it wasn't right at the beginning of the year.
Mm-mm. No, but so this one will air on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. What, the 8th?
Yeah, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. I remember how awkward that felt, that very first episode.
Oh, man. How many times did we stop and start?
It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. We stopped and started 2 or 3 times, right?
A couple of times.
But then we realized you just have to keep going. Just have to keep plodding through.
That's right.
Maybe not plodding. That might not be the right word.
I just pictured Clydesdales.
No, it's been fun. And we love this community that has developed, and we enjoy hearing from each of you and have prayed for you. Every week we pray. And we just are thankful that you've continued to stick with us and hope you'll enjoy the topics that we have coming up this year. We've got a good one today that's really appropriate for the new year. I'm sure everyone can kind of guess what we'll be talking about. But before we get started on that, what's been going on around your homestead? Is it cold in Kentucky?
Yes, it is. It is very cold. A lot of days the sun doesn't really come out. It's kind of gray and overcast and cold. And so we haven't had a lot of rain or anything like that, which is a little bit unusual for this time of year, but we just bundle up, plod through. There's that word again, plod through.
So we're not off to a great start. We're plodding already.
We're plodding. No, it's, I used to really have a hard time with winter because we've said this before. I do not like to be cold, and neither do you. But in some ways, it's kind of nice to shift gears a little bit. And, I do a lot more reading. I do a lot more indoor kind of projects, and that's kind of nice too. Neil got me this book for Christmas called The Grace-Filled Homestead. So I'm reading that one, and it's lovely. It kind of gets your mind excited for the new season and spring and planting and all the fun things ahead. But
yeah, you live on the edge of the time zone, don't you? So what time does it get dark?
About 4:30.
Oh,
yeah,
it's too early.
It's rough.
Yeah, because it's 6. It's a little after 6 here when it gets dark. Now we go back to Denver tomorrow, and I think it gets dark around 5 there, because it is kind of like Bowling Green along the lines of a time zone. But at least we're on the other side of it, and we start going back towards the light.
Well, stay away from the light. Poltergeist reference.
Go to the light. Go to the light. I don't know if that's a reference too, but walk to the light.
The Bible.
True. That's not the one I had in mind, but I can't remember.
Hey, before I forget, I did want to mention, because I didn't jot this down, and now that I've thought about it, I want to say it. Sorry to interrupt. The podcast that we mentioned that's going to be hosted by those 4 young ladies. I think they're all in their early 20s, but it is also started this month. Sisters podcast, and it will also be airing on Monday mornings. So something else for
Mondays will be spent listening to podcasts.
Yeah, something else for ladies to enjoy and listen to, and they're all just really beautiful, beautiful young girls. It's kind of exciting to, well, not kind of, it's exciting to see, as young as they are, they have this huge desire to want to talk about spiritual things and talk about the word. I know we both listened to their intro, and they talk about they want this to be an opportunity to help others grow in the word, so be praying for that venture, and I know they'll do a lot of good with it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So how was Christmas? Did you have fun with babies?
Yes, our first Christmas with grandsons, and it was adorable, and we made a big mess.
It's the best kind.
Food everywhere, wrapping paper everywhere, babies and puppies. Carl and Emily have a brand new puppy. It was only 6 weeks old when they were here with him. So he's still got that puppy breath. Oh,
yes, I love puppy breath.
Puppy breath.
I say that and people don't know what I'm talking about. I'm glad you do.
Yes.
I like hold the puppy's face up to my face so I can
it's so
smell
unique
their breath.
and it doesn't last very long.
Yeah.
But there's sweet puppy breath and then that really round puppy belly that they have when they're so
soft.
Little. Oh my.
Yeah.
Adorable.
Funny. Jordan and Aaron got a puppy too. Well, Jackson got a puppy for Christmas. It's a German short-haired pointer. I had to look it up.
Oh.
But yeah, I was thinking the same thing about the little breath and the little needle sharp teeth.
Yeah, well, there is that also.
Chew on everything.
That's right.
So
and I put him up to my face because I couldn't help it. And he would kind of, lick me and then bite me on the nose.
Yeah. Is
so
it a little nut or what kind of dog is it?
They did get it at the shelter, I believe, but it's a, what did they say it was? It's like a half wiener dog and half poodle.
Oh,
Doxy poo. That's what it is. It's
Never
a doxy poo.
Okay.
So cute.
Well, that'll be fun for them. And
I do have some fun things to show you that I got for Christmas that first of all, my sister made this mosaic.
Ah, look at that. That's peaches.
It's peaches. See, so she gave this to me and she was very sheepish about it. And I said, and then she goes, do not share this on Looking Up.
Sorry, Christy.
I know. So I said, what? And it did not turn out the way she thought it would. And she said, if you share it, make sure you tell everybody it was my first attempt ever. But
Impressive.
She broke all these pieces. For those of you watching, you can see it. She broke all these pieces up herself and created this. And I love it. It's a mosaic picture of peaches on a cutting board.
What are the pieces made out of? Like
he said, they're glass.
And
anyway, she talented.
Must have covered it with something to make it smooth.
Yeah. And then Emily, can you see this embroidered? It says Farm Sweet Farm, and it's done on a white tea towel. Isn't that cute? I love the colors. Sweet. And my sister also got me these pretty glasses. They're green drinking glasses.
Are they Pioneer Woman?
I don't think
Look
so.
at the bottom.
No, they're not. They're not Pioneer Woman.
I have some like that.
But I love the color. And when I opened it up, I was like, oh, I love these. And Christy said, well, I hope so. They were on your Amazon wish list.
Sometimes we forget what we put on those.
I know. I thought, really? Well, I have good taste. And Neil, look at this picture. Neil got me. It's a vintage print of this woman with a cow in her milking pail. Yeah. I love the colors in here. I bought the perfect frame to put it in. And then one more thing. You're not going to believe this. Oh. Look how gorgeous.
Oh, that is beautiful.
This Dutch oven. This is the lid to it. It is
one of those
too
heavy
pretty.
ones.
Yes, too pretty to use. Here's the base. Isn't that gorgeous? Beautiful. White and blue flower designs all over it.
You can leave that sitting on your stove all the time.
That's exactly what I said. Yeah, it's the kind you can just leave out on your stove because it's so pretty. But just wanted to share some fun kind of homesteady things that I got this year. Sweet. So yeah.
Well, I wanted to share something too that my friend gave me. It's this book. And it says, hey friend, I wrote a book about you. And this came from my friend Kathy. Oh. And I won't read it all, but I laughed and cried all the way through this thing. It came the day we were getting ready for family Christmas. And so I was standing in the middle of a mess in the kitchen and laughing and crying. But I did it. You did this for me. And it's just the sweetest thing. And it has, of course, you know all this, but everyone else doesn't. But it has, like when I first met you, I thought you were. So it was fill in the blank stuff for you to fill in. We can agree on lots of things. For instance, we both know this simple equation. Puff pastry plus anything is awesome. So you wrote that. But anyway, it was just the sweetest, most fun thing to go through. I've never seen anything like it. One page you have, this is a time capsule of our friendship. Do not open until whatever. And here are some things we can put in it. And you wrote down a Burger King crown, because that was one of the things that we did in Israel. We went to Burger King and got crowns. Treadmill. We spent a lot of time walking together on treadmills in different places and talking. Pottery shards, of course, from Israel. Linen. We both love linen. colored pencils, and Ajit. I had to look at that for a second. Ajit? And then I remember Ajit. He was our waiter on the cruise.
Yes, we all
Yeah.
said we wanted to take one home with us.
Yes, I have missed Ajit. Anyway,
Ah,
it was very sweet, and I love it, and that's one of those things that I will treasure forever. So thank you for that. It was very
you're
sweet.
welcome. I had a lot of fun filling it out. It warmed my heart to just to go down a little trip of memory lane.
Mm-hmm.
And Neil was asking me about some of it, so I was sharing my answers, and he said, "Are all of your fill in the blanks going to be sappy?" I said, "No."
Well, he suggested the games. Where is that page that if our life was if our friendship was a game,
Mm-hmm.
and he suggested some. You said one of them was bananagrams, of course, and then the second one was 2 crowns instead of 5 crowns, and no clue.
No.
Smarty
Yeah,
pants.
he thinks he's so funny.
Yeah. Well, they try to be funny, don't they?
That's what
Well,
you get when you say things out loud. When I was filling it out, and I'm going, if we were a game, and he starts laughing, like
mhm,
snickering over
yeah,
there.
he likes to be punny.
Mm-hmm.
But John gave me an art print that I have been wanting forever and ever, and I didn't bring it in here because I didn't know how if I could show it. It was kind of big. It's a canvas of you've probably seen it before. Can't remember what it's called, but it's from Peter's perspective after he's fallen in the water, after he asked Jesus to walk toward him on the water, and he gets out, of course, and he's walking, but then he takes his eyes off Jesus. So it's looking up at Jesus, and you can see his hand extending down to the water, like the water's closing in over Peter's head. Anyway, I'll show a picture
Ooh.
of it next week in the group. But I've wanted that forever. It's been on my wish list, and he finally
Mm.
found it. It's a print of a print of a print, but he found it, and I can't wait to hang that up. So that
Ooh.
was a fun
Just you
gift.
describing it gave me chills. That
Yeah,
sounds
I love it.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Nicely
But
done, John.
yeah, I also wanted to share a book that a friend sent me, and it's Kathy White. I can't remember if she's in New Zealand or Australia. I want to say she's in Australia, but she and her husband Shane went with us to Israel in 2019, and she
Mm-hmm.
sent me this book in the mail. I imagine she had it sent from Amazon, but it's called A Country Between:
Mm-hmm.
Making a Home Where Both Sides of Jerusalem Collide. And I'm going to send this to you because I think you would enjoy it. I couldn't put it down. The description, it's a true story. I mean, it's a autobiography of a writer. Her name is Stephanie Saldana. She's from San Antonio, but she spent a lot of time in the Middle East. And then she ended up marrying a man who she met in a monastery in Syria, which is, it's hard to imagine that anyway, but
Mm-hmm.
they met and they got married, and they ended up living on Nablus Road, right there across from the Damascus Gate, that
Okay.
neighborhood where all of
Mm-hmm.
those shopkeepers are.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll love it too, because you can just picture it in your mind. But she talks about just how it's such it's a volatile area, but yet for the most part, people coexist there peacefully. There's a lot of action there at the Damascus Gate. It's the entrance to the Muslim quarter, but it just was a whole different perspective for me, because I tend to be much more comfortable in Jewish areas of the city, and where if we're surrounded by Jews, I feel comfortable. It's just more familiar to me. I know more about them.
Mm-hmm.
But she is obviously, I think she had a degree in Middle Eastern studies, but she speaks Arabic, and so most of her perspective comes from from the Islamic areas. And it's important to see things from different viewpoints. And she never did say anything negative about either side, but they were there through several different wars between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. And so it was kind of like what's going on now has been going on, of course, for years and years and years, but kind of an eyewitness perspective. But anyway, she sent me an email. Kathy White, and she said, "I'm sending you something, and you will never look at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre again, at the stone in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre." So I was immediately intrigued. But she talks about, in the book, the author talks about taking her little boy for playtime in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre to climb on rocks because they live in the middle of the city and there weren't so many playgrounds that he could get to. So he runs in every day. She talks about putting her stroller on those ramps. You've seen them push carts down those ramps that are made, and pushing the stroller down there. And he runs in and he lays down on that stone of unction right there at the door of the Holy Sepulchre, which I can't imagine doing. But anyway, it was very interesting. And I want to share it with you. And
you read nonfiction.
Yeah. I mean, I like this kind of nonfiction. It's not as...
It's still a story.
It's not like a self-help book. Those are the ones that I tend to get kind of stuck in and not enjoy as much. But this, it's a story.
Yeah, remind me to tell you in a little bit about a self-help book that I just ran across because it kind of plays in with our topic. So I might bring that up. But before we get to that, you need to tell your mother something. I made her marshmallow roll. Remember you described it in an episode and I said it sounds like it should be called chocolate salami. That stuff is ridiculous. It is so addictive.
Yeah.
And it makes 3 good-sized rolls. And I'm pretty sure I single-handedly wiped out. And I used walnuts because that's what I had. And when I toasted them, I added sea salt.
Ugh.
And that whole toasty, nut, salty, chocolatey combination. I mean,
squishy marshmallow. Yeah.
Every single day, I had 3 or 4 slices of that thing. And the day that I finished it off, in my mind, I was going, it's a good thing I finished this off because it's not doing the scales any favors. And at the same time, I'm thinking, I still have the ingredients.
You make it and don't tell anybody.
I could make some more.
Well, I think that the same thing happened to her. She made it for us, for our family Christmas. And she, I think, said she made 4 rolls out of it. I'm not going to say how many I think she ate on her own. She can confess that if she wants to. But I will just say there was only 1 to bring to family Christmas. So,
well, that's kind of what happened. I made it for when all the kids were here, but there were also other desserts and things. So it didn't look like very much of it was eaten, but very much of hardly anything was eaten that day. And so it was left here. I meant to disperse it and send it off, but it was left here. And Neil doesn't really like marshmallows, which means yours truly.
Yeah.
It's been the one. But oh man, it's so simple. You kind of think
you just slice a little piece off.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really is good.
Somebody told me, I can't remember, somebody commented that they made that, but they did with colored marshmallows. They called it like stained glass candy or something like that because it looked like stained glass. Yeah.
Well, that's cute.
And I guess it makes a little additional flavor because some of those flavored or colored marshmallows have flavors.
Kind of fruity. Yeah. I also tried the butter candle that I told you I was going to try, that whole trendy thing. It was novel. It was kind of neat. I stuck mine in mashed potatoes instead of bread I think I did it Christmas Eve dinner. And so it was fun. I put garlic and herbs in mine and stuck it in mashed potatoes and lit it. And it was fun when it happened, but it just melts. And it's kind of a lot of hassle for...
Yeah, you could just
I could have just stuck a pat of butter on it. Yeah. Because after I did it, I thought, well, I can say I did it. That's about all.
Yeah. I'd like to try it with bread. Alyssa, I asked her to bring me a wick because she had some. And then I forgot to get it from her. She forgot to give it to me. And I didn't ever make it anyway. So yeah, I'll try it again sometime.
I ordered some wicks, but I also knew I wanted to try candles. So I knew that if I didn't like the butter candle thing, I'd still find a use for them. But anyway, at least I tried it. It was fun.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember if I tried new recipes. I did make some with what's not the puff pastry, but the layered that you make baklava with.
Oh yeah.
What's it called?
I know what you're talking about.
That stuff. It was phyllo dough. And it was Gouda cheese, brie cheese, spinach. You had a little egg in it. I'll share the recipe next week, but you use the phyllo dough and you just wrap, like you fold it in half. So it's kind of a thin, narrow strip. You put a little, like a spoonful of the spinach mixture, and then you triangle it, you fold it over and fold it over and fold it over. and then sprinkle it, or you cover it and brush it with butter and sprinkle it with sesame seeds. And they were
Kind of
really
like
good.
spanakopita.
Maybe.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
My
They were
stomach's
good.
about to
They
growl.
were messy. You bite into it and you have sesame seeds all over your face, and you
Oh.
speak and the phyllo dough just kind of explodes from your mouth. So don't talk with your mouth full of that stuff. It was really good. That was another one of those half-baked harvest recipes. But she also said it's like prep time 20 minutes, bake time 20 minutes. So, the whole thing from start to finish was 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Lies, because that was Christmas Day, because we had 3 or 4 couples and a couple of individuals come for lunch. And I started a couple hours ahead of time, and knowing that these people would probably be early because they were early arrivers. And I was still in the middle of, it was a mess, but they tasted good. Oh, and then you serve it with honey. You drizzle honey over it.
Oh, there you
Yeah.
go.
So that was a good
Nice.
one. That was a
That
good
sounds
one.
amazing.
Yeah.
I made, Neil and I always do a New Year's tea, or we try
Mhm.
to on New Year's Day. And this year I said, let's just have coffee and I'll make biscotti and we'll do that instead. And so instead of using my regular biscotti recipe, I wanted to look up something that was kind of authentic.
Mhm.
And so that's what I looked up, authentic Italian biscotti. And I found a recipe for one that seemed pretty simple and basic. And it was almond biscotti. It had almonds and almond flavoring and grapefruit zest. And so it smelled wonderful when I was
Mhm.
making it. And the texture turned out great. The cookie looked great. It had zero flavor.
Oh.
Zero flavor. And not only that, I couldn't even say that it tasted like eating a sweet cookie. It tasted like eating baked flour. That's how bad it was.
Oh, yeah.
And I was so disappointed. We're sitting there getting ready to dip it in our coffee, and I took one bite and I go, huh. And I took another bite, and then I took a bite of it just by itself, and I was like, these are terrible. And
Oh,
I'd made a
man,
big
all that
batch of
work.
it because we were going to somebody's house that night, and I thought I'll
Mhm.
bag some up as a hostess gift, which I didn't do. I ended up throwing them
Mhm.
all away because it just wasn't worth the calories. But
Huh.
so disappointing when that
Yeah.
happens, and I was like,
Mm.
I'm so sorry. These are awful.
Well, it's a good thing that the two of you had them first before you
Oh,
taking them, and
yeah.
everybody had been
Oh,
going, "Oh, did you taste what Kathy brought?"
yeah, these are
Blech.
gross. That was disappointing.
Oh, well.
I know you probably want to get started into our topic, but I have to share this story that somebody messaged me, and it's a woman from Ripon, California. I
Mhm.
met her at a ladies' day out there, and her name is Cindy, and I'm probably going to mispronounce her last name. It looks like Detrick, but it could be Dietrich, Cindy Dietrich.
Okay.
And but she was telling me about, she brought up a cow story. And she said that before she was born, her parents had 2 cows that her mom milked while her mom was pregnant. And she said she milked her twice a day. She would save the money in a jar from the milk, and she sold it to pay the hospital bill
Wow.
when she had her. And then she said it was hard work because they had adobe dirt, which is like sticky black mud. She said, I can't imagine being pregnant with rubber boots and pregnant milking twice a day. And then she said, this is so interesting. Also, Wayne Jackson. So, him, prolific
Mhm.
writer, the late brother,
Mhm.
Wayne Jackson. She said, also, Wayne Jackson had just started preaching for us back then and spent a lot of time eating with our family. One day he was eating at our home and wanted a glass of milk, and my dad told him it was in the refrigerator, and he got some, but it was the baby formula that her mom had made her out of that milk.
Oh, no.
And then she went on to say a few years later, her mom and dad, and she shared their names with me, it was Hubert and Norma Potter, sold one of their cows so that Wayne Jackson could buy his first typewriter to type the Christian Courier on.
Oh, wow.
Is
History.
that not the
That
coolest
is very
story?
cool.
Yeah, so I loved it. I asked her if I
Mhm.
could share it because I thought that was so cool.
They must have felt bad about sending him into the refrigerator for baby formula. So they bought him
Right.
his typewriter, or paid for his typewriter.
Yeah, sold a cow so he could buy a typewriter, and the
Yeah.
rest is history.
Yeah. That's cool.
Christian Courier is such a great resource.
It is.
I use their archives all the time if I'm
It's easy
studying a
to
particular
search.
topic. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can pretty much type in any topic and you'll find
Hmm.
something that's been written about it
Yeah.
on the Christian
And
Courier.
so they must spend a lot of time tagging their articles of all of the different things that people might
True.
search. And that takes time.
It does.
You can throw up an article and put it on the website, but you have to, I don't think tagging is the right word, but you have to put it in there in such a way that people can search and find what they're looking for. And that's very helpful.
It is. Trying to get back into writing this year.
That's right. You started a new weekly blog. Well, not a new blog, but a new weekly topic. So what's it going to be about?
52 reasons to love the church. So I want to focus on a different reason every week, but it's been a while. And just since I've regularly been writing, things have changed, and with the advent of AI, even that plays a part. Like things pop up asking you, do you want AI to generate tags, for instance, is one of them. And it'll give you a list of suggested tags that could go along with your article. So, but that was one of my resolutions. So
well, that's a big commitment.
Committed. It is a big commitment. I did it in 2016. I did a Revive Me series, 52 ways to grow closer to Christ. So it's going to be kind of similar to that, except this time I want to focus on the church.
Well, that's going to be good. You and I talk often about how it's discouraging to see when people speak ill of the church on social media, and it's so easy to do because you're behind your little platform in your house, but the damage that can happen just by saying negative, hurtful things about the bride of Christ in front of the world for the whole world to see. So I'm glad that you'll be able to counteract a lot of that. Do what you can to.
Well, I got the idea. I was listening to Hiram Kemp preach on New Year's Eve. His lesson was ways to glorify God in 2024. Excellent lesson. And one of his main points was love the local church. And he said, we say that we love the church, but we could be speaking in those broad, more generic, I love the bride of Christ, and he says, I'm talking about your church family. And recognize your need for your church family. And, and it was really good. I won't go into all of it. You can go listen, but I just I thought that would be a great emphasis, for a study. So anyway.
Well, that is so true. Warts and all, learning to love our fellow members of our body. And that indicates that we have our own warts, that we want people to love us when we show those bad sides too. So I'm glad you're doing that.
Thanks. Just this morning, my sister-in-law, Mindy, shared a little clip of a sermon by Jason Chesser in Alabama. We went to school with him. And just in this little clip, I saw he was talking about recognizing our vulnerability as individuals, and we need each other. We need Christ, but we need his people, and we need the church. And the example he gave was that that's why the shepherd left the 99 and went off to the one that wandered off by itself, because the 99 had each other. They had this group safety, but that one off by itself was vulnerable and alone. And I didn't get to listen to the whole thing, but I thought, you start seeing things when you think about a certain subject or topic, and it's so true. Sometimes we get all caught up in this whole independence and pride, or maybe it's even, I like being by myself. But we do. God knew that we needed the church. We need each other, and we're much more vulnerable when we separate ourselves from the flock. We're much more vulnerable to the enemy's attacks.
Yeah. Well, even if we feel like we don't need anybody, that doesn't mean that other people don't need you.
Oh, so true. So true.
I think that I don't mind being by myself. And sometimes we've talked about this before. Like we want to, if John's not there, I tend to slip out quickly. I don't stand around and talk. But I think I can serve in some little way by being a support to other people. And so it's not just about what others do for you, but what you can do for others.
So true. And it does reveal kind of a selfish mindset. Instead of focusing on what you think you need or don't need when you assemble, we should be thinking about, like you say, the encouragement we should be giving others. And what are we doing to give? Yeah, good point.
Good deal. Well, I was going to share something too that was neat. I told you, and I think I told everybody on the podcast, that we were going to have grandkids. We didn't have all 6 of them at different times. Some of them are too little to do it, but we had Clara for a few days by herself, and then we had Emmy for a few days, and then Jackson for a few days. Well, Emmy, John introduced to The Sound of Music. She had never seen that. And it was
I love that movie.
funny. I know. But it was so funny because first he just showed her a few of the songs he thought she would enjoy. And then she wanted to see more. And then it was on a Sunday night. And I was fixing supper in the kitchen. And she had question after question after question for John. Why is he mad? Why does she look scared? Why is he looking at her like that? Why is he mean? And, it was just funny listening to John explain things to her. And now she is obsessed with The Sound of Music. And Aaron sent us a video the other day of Emmy standing behind Jackson. You know that scene where the kids are all doing yeah, all the scenes. But the one where they're at the party and they're doing the cuckoo. It's time to go to bed, that thing. So she was standing behind Jackson and she'd go, cuckoo.
How cute.
And it surprised him. He didn't know she was there and he jumped. And then he goes, stop. Anyway, it's just, she's curtsying now with her shirts.
Oh,
she's totally into Sound of Music. But another thing that I really enjoyed, the grandmother in me is coming out here, but I read to Jackson the book that's called My Side of the Mountain. I mean, it's a chapter book. It took us, I don't know, 6 or 7 nights altogether because we had to do it over when he was here by himself and then over Christmas. And then we finished it up this last week. But my friend Linda Miller, she does this with her grandkids on FaceTime because they actually live in Kentucky somewhere. I can't remember exactly where, but she told me that I don't think doesn't do it every night, but she'll FaceTime with them and read a book to them. And I thought that was really neat. Just a neat memory idea for a grandmother. And Jackson loves everything outdoors. And so I picked My Side of the Mountain, which I loved when I was probably a little older than him. But
I don't know that one.
It's about he's probably a 12 or 13-year-old boy who he runs away from home. And so I had to tell Jordan, hopefully this won't encourage that kind of thing. But it's not exactly he's not mad. He doesn't run away from home out of anger, but he wants to live off the land.
An adventure.
And so, he leaves New York City and goes up to the Catskills up in, I guess, northern New York. And he spends a whole year and he lives off the land and he burns out the inside of a hemlock tree. I mean, when I read it when I was probably early, I don't know, 11 or 12 maybe. And I could just see it in my head. And it was one of those things I've told you before that I'm fascinated by things that I know I'll never do. Mm-hmm. And I knew I would never do that, but it was fascinating to read about. He trains his own falcon to hunt for him. And so Jackson just ate it up. And it was just so fun to have him, right there next to me. Aww. And he would just lay there and he'd look up, not looking at me, but I could see his wheels turning. And he was following along because surprising things he would, there was one time that talked about the character's name was Sam Gribley, talked about Sam going back home. And I didn't know if he was listening completely at the time, but Jackson heard me say whatever it was in that sentence. And he goes, so I knew he was like, don't go home, Sam. Anyway, thanks for indulging me. I just thought it was such a fun, special memory for me to be able to read a book to him like that.
I'm glad you shared. Those are great.
Yeah. It was fun.
Love it. Yeah, I jotted that down. We'll have to get that for our guys too.
I think it's a Newbery book. It's Jean Craighead George, I think is the name of the author. Mm-hmm. And it's not like a simple book. There was a lot of words in there that he didn't know, but because of the context, he could put 2 and 2 together. And some of the things I had to explain, but it's clean. It's a good book for young adults. Yeah. So you have anything else you want to share? I forgot to set a timer, by the way.
I know. I was just going to ask, were you paying attention to the
No,
time?
I wasn't. Sorry.
Okay. That's all right. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. So today our topic is going to be about change, just because, the beginning of the year, we had an episode last year about fresh starts. And so it's similar to that. But I was just thinking about how at the beginning of the year, so many of us make New Year's resolutions. And I've seen on social media some people saying we shouldn't call them resolutions. We should say these are our intentions. And I understand that the point they're making is that we intend to do this. I think it's a matter of semantics, but New Year's resolutions and making changes, and why is it so hard? It seems exciting to say this is something I'm going to change about myself next year. I'm going to improve this about myself. I'm going to stop doing this or that. And then, we start out with a bang, and then it just kind of gradually over time we lose interest, or we fail and then we quit altogether because we think I've already failed. Why should I keep going? Mm-hmm. So I thought it would be good for us to talk about change and what's good about it and what's hard about it, and maybe some ways that we can accomplish change in our lives, and maybe what we can do when we fall prey to giving up or quitting. So I just thought that this would be something that we could focus on at the beginning of this new year. And this is one of those things. A difference between you and me is that you like fresh starts. You've talked about this, and I don't make New Year's resolutions. Maybe partially because I've tried it before and I don't keep up with them. And so I think, why, if I'm going to do something, I'll just start. I don't wait, because I know if I wait, like diets, I end up gaining 5 pounds in the week between when I say, okay, I'm going to start next Tuesday. So between now and Tuesday, I'm like cramming everything in my mouth.
All the Oreos.
Yes. So I just have to start right away if there's something that I need, feel like I need to make a change. But what is it about fresh starts that you really enjoy?
I don't know. I even I like all the trappings that go with fresh starts, the brand new planner, the new calendar page. That I just like to sit down with a notepad and start thinking back over the past year and thinking about what I want to do better about in this next year, or what I want to try. Maybe it's something new, branch out in some area, or, there's always self-improvement type things. And this year I handled it a little bit differently. I think Neil was surprised because we share these when we have our New Year's tea. And he had a list, and his are always really good. And I believe this year's was alliterated. Neil's list. Yeah. I said, really?
Perfection
and I
promises.
Had 2 things, because I thought, I have all these things that make the list every single year, and this year I just narrowed it down to 2 things that are very actionable and very specific. And I feel like if I can kind of just focus on these 2 things, there are things that'll bleed over into other areas, when it comes to discipline or things like that. But I don't know, I feel that way about every week though. And there's something about Monday morning, I feel like I've got the whole week ahead of me. How am I going to spend this week? It's in my planner. It's like that clean, 2 pages that fall open on my desk, and just makes me feel good.
Yeah. I was watching Erin a few days ago. She had a new planner, and she has a whiteboard that has a calendar on it that month to month will erase and put the new stuff on. And I was just telling her, I would love to be that person. I want to be the one who has a planner that you keep up with all the time. And as soon as I make something on my schedule, I write it in my planner. But I don't. And it's irritating to me, because then I find myself wondering, do I have something going on that week? And then, I'll double book, or I forget about something. So I want to be, and I don't know how. I guess in some ways that is an organization issue. It's a self-discipline issue, because if there's a way that I want to be and I'm not doing it, then it's because I don't have the self-discipline to accomplish it. So how do I get there? And I don't think you have to have a planner, but it's you need to be organized and to be able to meet your commitments and stuff, and plan yourself that.
Some people are list makers and some people aren't, Yeah. I'm not married to a list maker.
Well, he gets things done. You make lists.
You get things done.
Well, I do, but I do much better when I do make a list. I love to make lists that would have things on them that I've already done, so I can mark things off to start off the list making.
The list making for me helps me feel less overwhelmed. Yeah. So if I'm at the beginning of the week and I'm thinking, oh, we've got this, it can feel a little overwhelming to me. But if I write everything down in the planner, I know this is this night and this is this night, and I'll make this for the, whatever it is. I feel like my brain can kind of let that go.
Yeah.
And I don't have to think about it again until I'm on that day, or that, when it's time to start prepping for that. And it just kind of takes that pressure. That's how my brain works. It just kind of takes that pressure off a little bit. And I know when I need to start thinking about that again.
Yeah. Well, I maybe somebody can suggest an app, because my phone is almost always with me, whereas my purse is not always, which would have the little planner, the little daily calendar, whatever. And I've tried to use Google Calendars, and it doesn't always, it's obviously me, because other people use them very successfully, but I need some kind of an app that is easy to input something that will alert me. I don't know what it is. There's some planners in my Notability that I could use, but anyway, yeah, it's frustrating to me, and that's one of the areas that I would like to change, is organizationally. And I mean, you're right. I do get things done, and I don't normally forget things and like don't show up or whatever. But there are times when I forget something and I'm in a rush. Like I'll remember that morning that I have lunch with somebody, and so I find myself the rest of the morning stressed out because I'm in a rush. So I would like to be better at organization.
Do you remember those little pocket calendars from back in the day?
That's what I have.
Oh,
A little like this size,
yeah.
that's covered in plastic.
Yeah.
That's what I have.
Oh, yeah. Those are the greatest. Calendar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my planner, I don't carry it with me. It really stays on the dining room table until we have company, because when Neil leaves for work, that's where I go. And I open up the planner for the day, and I look at what's ahead, and that's where I write down, WWW for water, workout, and the word, for my check marks or tally marks or whatever. And it's like part of my morning routine. I just check the planner, write down anything I need to add.
Yeah. Maybe part of my problem is having two different homes, and I don't,
Well, yeah.
my kitchen table here in Dripping Springs is like central. And that's where my scripture writing book stays. That's where my computer usually is. So I could do that here. But then in Denver, there's the office, there's the house. So I need to figure out a way, or I just need to give myself some grace and realize that it's probably not going to change.
Realize that you don't have to be like anybody else. You can just be yourself.
Yeah. As long as myself is not stressed out because I'm forgetting things. But I was thinking, okay, why is change so hard? And one of the things that I was remembering is, in marriage seminars, sometimes John talks about, or in counseling, marriage counseling, why do we fall back into the same routine? Why do we fall back into the same habits when it comes to maybe communicating or conflict resolution? We do it the same way every time, and we fail every time. And he gives this example of when if you've ever driven on an old country road, maybe, back when I was a kid, we would go on these drives on the Parker's land in this old Jeep, and they would have these ruts because you drive in the same area all the time. You follow the cow path or whatever. And so your tires naturally want to fall into these ruts. And then you'd have to like jerk the wheel to get out of the rut, and it wants to pull you back in because it's comfortable, personifying the Jeep here. But when we keep going down the same ruts because it's just what we're used to, and it's hard, and we have to really fight to pull the wheel, to do something a different way, to communicate a different way, to solve conflict in a different way, to speak in a different way, it requires intention, and it requires realizing that I don't want to go that way. I want to go this way, making a new path, and having to do it over and over until it's a new habit. So I think some of it's just intentionality, that we are lazy. I mean, that's just the bottom line. We're lazy about things sometimes. So that's one thing I think that makes change hard. I think also that we have these expectations of ourselves that are too high. And I don't think my desire to want to be organized is too high, but maybe my desire to want to do it like other people, like you were saying, to have that, lined out in a planner or to whatever. So having expectations that are too high of ourselves can lead to not being able to change. Mm-hmm. That's a hard thing. And then another thing that I thought of was that a lot of times we see it as something to conquer or a problem to overcome rather than a challenge that can make us proud of ourselves. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So maybe just that old saying, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Maybe that's the catchphrase here. Change the way you look at something, and then you'll see it differently. So I need to see something a little bit different. So that's my thoughts about why it's hard. I know that there are other ideas, but why do you think change is hard?
I think we are really good at the negative self-talk. The whole failure. I've tried this before. This is really hard. This is too hard. It's just not who I am. Those kinds of messages. And we believe that about ourselves when we say those kinds of things. And, whether it ends up being our excuse or whatever, we just believe that negative self-talk and kind of we're defeating ourselves before we ever even get off the ground. And I think personally, I try to think of this in light of what are some of the things I always think I want to change. My will is often overrun by my want in the moment. I think that my will is that I want to be more disciplined in whatever area, whether it's physically, spiritually, you name it, emotionally. Maybe it's my marriage. Maybe it's my health choices. Maybe it's how involved I am with my church family, in all these different areas. This is my goal and this is what I want, or my will. But then in the moment, Neil makes me mad. And so what I really want to do right now is let him have it. Yeah. Or in the moment, boy, that puff pastry looks amazing. Yeah. So that my will is I want to make better choices, but my want in the moment is greater than that. And I think that's, for me, one of the most difficult things is with that intention, telling yourself ahead of time, that means that when those challenges come that make it harder, I'm going to be a better wife. Well, Neil is probably going to tick me off at some point. So in that moment, am I going to choose to keep trying to be more patient and loving and kind and respectful? Or am I going to give in to how I'm feeling in the moment? So to me, that's one of the biggest obstacles is just realizing, maybe not realizing ahead of time, this means be willing to do hard things.
Yeah. And being more specific rather than vague.
Right. Make some harder choices. This means that when I'm feeling selfish, recognize it and own up to it. When I'm feeling weak in the moment, acknowledge that and realize that this is my opportunity. Like you say, here's the growth challenge. Am I going to prayerfully and through the strength of Christ make this harder choice, deny myself, put others above self, be inconvenienced by having somebody into my home because I want to be more involved, whatever it is, acknowledge ahead of time that that's what that really looks like. And I need to be willing to follow through in those ways.
What I was thinking about the other day, that this is a little side note, slightly, it's not off topic because it's what you're talking about, but I'm still thinking it through, that getting mad, getting angry is a temptation. It's not just a weakness or a choice, but it's a temptation. And I think the difference is that I am tempted to get mad because that's one of those ruts. If John, and I've gotten better about this, and you'd ask him and he would say so, because in earlier years of our marriage, I think if he did X, I would get mad because it was a temptation for, it was attention or for whatever reason. I'm tempted to get mad. I'm tempted to fly off the handle or whatever. And recognizing that's kind of helped me in the last month or so that I've been thinking about this, because there was something that happened, John said something, and I thought to myself, that I don't really like that. And I was tempted to go down that road of being angry. And I'm probably not going to make a whole lot of sense here, but I it just has helped me to realize that it's a temptation to avoid and to ask God to help me with this temptation, to refuse to fall prey to that temptation, which, requires intentionality. But I guess I brought that up because thinking about change and realizing, what's behind something, what's behind why I feel this way. Is it because I'm tempted to repeat an old behavior that I'm accustomed to? Or am I going to take charge of my feelings, take charge of my will, like you're talking about, and decide that I'm just not going to fall prey to that temptation?
Hiram mentioned that in his sermon on Sunday, and he was talking about how we say that we're going to make all these changes or give up these sins or whatever. And then we'll say, well, but I'm really angry right now. I know I'm going to be better at controlling my anger, but I'm really mad right now. So I'm just going to let myself be mad right now. And not only that, I'm probably going to think back to past offenses so I can pile on that anger and get even madder. I know I set this intention, but right now I'm just really mad. And later I'll work on being angry, and I thought, well, now he's stepping all over my toes.
Yeah. Well, it's just one of those things. When you think of it in light of being a temptation, to me, it makes it a little bit easier it removes a step, I guess. It's less about, he offended me, I've got to think about why he offended me, blah, 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 rather than saying, the devil's trying to use this against me, and I just refuse to let him do that. And then it just kind of takes some of that out of the way. So that's kind of a little bit of a side note.
It does make it more serious, though, when you're, call it what it is. It's sin. If you lose your temper and say things that you shouldn't, like you're saying, this becomes a temptation. Well, we're not talking about just working on my personality a little bit and smoothing the rough edges. We're talking about not falling into sin and giving into that temptation to sin and some specific things that might be things you want to change.
Yeah. Well, I found an article that I thought was really good. Well, one of the things that, while we're on that subject, I've been trying to figure out how to say this in the scripture writing group, because every year this is what happens. We start out really strong. Everyone's so excited about it, and there's lots of excitement and posts and which is great. I don't want anyone to be discouraged by what I'm going to say, but it falls off because we're people and we're human, and because some of us have the temptation that we skip a day and that's it. I've messed up and I can't, I can't catch up. And if I'm not going to do it perfectly, then I'm not going to do it at all. That's another temptation, if you think about it, is to listen to that part of ourselves that wants to drag ourselves down. What I want to say to people is, it's okay. Don't expect that you're going to do this perfectly every day. Don't make yourself, try to do it every day. But if you don't, it's okay. You don't even have to catch up. It's great if you can at some point, but just pick up the pencil or the pen and start on that day. And don't not do it because you feel like a failure. Just pick up and do it, keep going. Just take that next step. And I think it's that way with so many things, with a diet, whatever. We feel like, I blew it, I might as well eat this too. I know I do that all the time. Well, today is shot, so I might as well eat this whole pizza.
Right. Tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah. Another fresh start tomorrow. But for real though, I think with New Year's resolutions, with this new year of writing Genesis, you know what? If you miss a day, you can read what you missed and you're going to catch right up, or you're going to just do it. And quit kicking yourself about not doing it perfectly. Quit kicking yourself about missing a day. Quit kicking yourself about not doing it like someone else did it. Just remember why you're doing it, is so you'll learn about God and who is it that wants you to stay in it, and who is it that wants you to be out of it. That's I just want people to understand that in doing the scripture writing, is that you're not going to do it perfectly. Nobody does. What has helped me the most to stick with it is the accountability, more than anything, honestly.
I was just going to mention
So,
that. Because I
so
wrote down accountability as one of the things that could be make things hard or be an obstacle if you're doing it all by yourself. You
yeah.
have no accountability. But with your group, that serves that purpose. Yes, you're learning from each other, but you've also got a built-in accountability partner, a little opportunity to check in and, let
Yeah.
everybody know you're keeping up, you're doing your best, you're trying, and it's a really great resource.
Yeah. So this article that I found, 10 great tips to keep your New Year's resolutions, they talked about why we make resolutions and how we tend to bite off more than we can chew. And so they were saying that you really need to narrow it down. And instead of having 10 New Year's resolutions, pick one or two and and realize that this is something that I want to do better in. It's not something that I'm necessarily going to conquer, but I'm going to gradually get better at doing whatever it is. So this is a sentence I thought was interesting. It feels like a new beginning, which is why so many people often set lofty resolutions. While this practice can sometimes lead people to bite off more than they can chew, going after resolutions can also present great opportunities to overcome struggles with willpower. So I think, again, it's that sense of, rather than seeing it as something negative we have to do, see it as something positive that is going to make my life better. It's going to make me closer to God. It's going to make me a better wife, sister, mother, daughter, whatever, when we see it as an opportunity rather than a challenge that we have to fix. Another thing that I thought was great is that they said people were more successful at keeping approach-oriented goals, like changing your eating or sleeping habits, rather than avoidance-oriented. So it's better to say, this is what I'm going to do. Today, I'm going to eat a better lunch. I'm going to have salad for lunch instead of pizza. I'm going to go to bed half an hour earlier rather than staying up until 1 o'clock in the morning. Having specific things that you say you're going to do rather than saying, I'm going to eat better today, or I'm not going to stay up all night. It's an approach and how you look at things, which I think would be helpful to me. Then they said to choose a specific goal. And again, to not be ambiguous about it, not to just say, I'm going to lose weight, but instead, maybe be more detailed. Say, I'm going to use Weight Watchers to lose 5 pounds in the next 2 months. And it's a doable thing. It's a bite-sized goal. And you know how you're going to do it or how you're going to try to do it. You know that it's not something so overwhelming. If you've got 100 pounds to lose, that to me is like, where do I even start with something like that?
Overwhelming.
Yeah. But if you say, okay, I'm going to lose 5 pounds by February 15th, you can do that. You can do that. And then when you see that you can do it, that's motivating and encouraging. And then it helps you to keep going. Been there, done that. Instead of saying, I'm going to get in shape, I'm going to maybe say something like, I'm going to walk 8,000 steps 3 days this week. That's something that we can do as well. And then you can see that you can accomplish that. And maybe you do it for another week or 2 or 3 weeks and then build on to it. So be specific about how you're going to accomplish your goals. Limit your resolutions. And again, instead of having 10, have 1 or 2 small chunks. And then I think rewarding yourself is something that is helpful too. Do you ever do that?
I do it with mail. I think
With
we've
what?
talked about
Mail?
stuff that comes in the mail. I think we've
yeah.
talked about this before, but like if a package comes, your Amazon order showed up or whatever, and it's like that delayed gratification, once I finish folding the laundry and vacuuming or writing this lesson or working, blah, 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 then I'll open the mail. Then I'll open this Amazon box or.
Oh, I never thought about doing that.
Yeah.
I love getting mail.
I do too.
Oh, that's a good idea. I was thinking more along the lines of, once I lose 15 pounds, I can get a
Buy
dress.
an outfit. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's helpful. And it's a less of a It's a more of a chunk that's doable rather than I've got to lose 60 pounds in the next 6 months, whatever, before a wedding or before a reunion, whatever. So small steps, because I think we set ourselves up for failure when we don't. I know I have lots of times. How do you give yourself grace when it comes to change if you don't meet your own expectations? Do you struggle with that, giving yourself grace, or I guess we can give ourselves too much grace, which
Yeah, I
I
was
would
gonna
say is an
say
excuse.
there's a pendulum swing there. Sometimes we're too hard on ourselves because we set these really, really unrealistic expectations. Um, and then I would say I fall more toward the other side. I'm too lenient on myself. I'm
Yeah.
really good at coming up with excuses or reasons why I wasn't able to try this, do this, don't do this, you know.
Yeah.
So I've gotten really good at that.
So you're grace filled. Yeah, I think I
Yeah,
probably
to
tend to be
my
more that way too.
detriment.
Yeah. But I don't think you give up.
No, and I think that's the difference. Are you striving for perfection, or are you just giving it your best every day, doing
Yeah.
what you can? You're still trying. You're
And
still taking actionable steps.
mhm. And that phrase every day is big too, because
Mhm.
to me, taking it a day at a time, that's been something I've had to do over the years with different things. If you look at it, it's going to take me forever to do this, whatever it
Mhm.
is. But if I say to myself,
Mhm.
today I'm going to do this, I'm going to make a list, I'm going to eat better. Sometimes it's minute to minute. If I can just make it until, and I think people who have addictions, with
Yeah.
smoking, something like that, they may have to take it a minute at a time and feel accomplishment with each minute that they've managed to not do whatever it is that they're tempted to do. But that's helpful to me to say, today I can do this for a day. I
Yeah, there's
started intermittent fasting a couple of years ago, and that was
mhm.
something I had to, if I can do this today, I can do this today, and then tomorrow I'll do what I want. And sometimes I tell myself tomorrow I'll do whatever I want, and then I get to tomorrow and I don't want to do that. I want to keep doing something good when I see that I can.
Mhm.
What are we going to say?
There's that quote that says, "What you do every day matters more than what you do every once in a while."
Hmm, that's true.
Mhm.
Thinking of it in bite-sized chunks.
Mhm.
Um, Another suggestion is to remember that change is a process and being okay with going slow, which I'm not great at. I think I mentioned not too long ago that I like projects that can be done in a day. I like to be, if it's a sewing project, I want it to be something that I can finish and take home. I don't want to go back week to week and work a little bit more. I want it to be done. I want to see results right now.
Yeah.
So this is probably where I struggle more than anything, is knowing that it's a process and it's going to take time. But anything worthwhile takes time, right?
So true. Mhm.
Yeah. Then they say to get support. And I think here you have to figure out what works best for you, because some people really need, back when I did Weight Watchers, when you would go to a weekly meeting, um, I didn't, I don't know why, but I didn't really enjoy those meetings. A lot of people said they needed the accountability, they needed that community. Sometimes I would go weigh in and then I would leave. I wouldn't stay for the meeting. And that was just better for me.
Mhm.
But depending on what the struggle is, I think you do need that support. You need um, someone to say, "Hey, how did you do this week?" or whatever. I don't know. Where do you fall in that? Do you need group support or alone support?
I don't know that I need group support, but I like a friend support.
Yeah,
You know, a sister, a good friend, or maybe share that with somebody that you know loves you and will encourage you, and you can kind of check in with occasionally. And I'd be more like small scale support.
yeah, me too. And John is usually the one that he knows if I'm
Mhm.
working on something, and he knows how important something is to me. So he'd be the one probably that would realize if how to encourage me if I needed encouragement, or to pat me on the back or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, then they say to renew your motivation. So that's something that each from week to week or day to day or whatever, you've got to remember, be specific about why do I want to do this? And maybe writing out a list saying with reasons why you want to eat better. I should come up with a different example besides just eating, but that's what I struggle with. So, but what is it about? Here's one that I'll never do. Why do I want to run a marathon? I'll never want to do that. I hats off to people who do it. I'm
Mhm.
very impressed by them, but that's not one of the things that I can ever see myself. My knees hurt too much, whatever. But what is it that motivates you to do or not do something?
Mhm.
If it's a weight issue, I have old pictures that I look back at and I think, I don't ever want to look like that again. I don't ever want to feel like that again. And when I see that, I remember how I felt. So it does motivate me. So renewing your motivation is a big deal. And then keep working on your goals. Keep a resolution journal. And this is something, of course, that they don't say in this article, but pray about it. You know, why do we forget that we can pray about anything that's important to us?
Yeah, big or
And
small.
yeah, and there was back in 2011 when John and I both lost a good bit of weight. He told me after we didn't ever get down to our goal, but we got down pretty good ways. And he told me that he prayed for me to lose weight. And, it was not the kind of conversation. I think that that could be a very delicate thing to say to somebody because it indicates, I was really seriously worried about you. But he told
Mhm.
me very carefully, very sweetly that it was something that he prayed about for me because he knew that it was important to me that I would be able to move around, get down on the floor with the grandkids that would eventually come. We didn't have any at the time, but to be healthy, to be able to do things that God wanted me to do. And he prayed for me. And it really, at the
Mhm.
time, took me by surprise because I guess in my mind, I was thinking, why do we need to bother God with something like that? But I mean, First Peter 5 tells us to cast our anxiety on him because he cares for us.
Mhm.
And I know that might be
All
taking a little bit out of context,
all
but
your
it doesn't,
anxiety.
yeah.
Mhm.
I think anything that's important to us is important to God. And motivation, did I want to lose weight so I could just look good? It wasn't about that. I wanted to look better, but it was about taking care of the body that God gave me. At the time, I was 42 or 43, and I just couldn't do much. So I wanted to be more healthy. So pray about it. There's the passage in First Corinthians, Second Corinthians that talks about being strong. It's the verse that says, "Quit you like men" in the New King James, but
Mhm.
he says to be strong, and it's not just a physical strength, but a mental and an emotional strength. And so, praying about having that kind of resolve and that mental strength that allows us to say, "No, I'm not going to do that," or "Yes, I'm going to do this because this is what is better for me. It's better for my family. It's better for my spiritual life to be a strong person." So
Mhm.
pray about it and realize it's a spiritual issue. So those were some suggestions that I thought were helpful.
Those are good. I think I would just add that remember all the good that comes from fulfilling those goals and changes. You mentioned what motivates you, but also think about how good it does feel when your clothes fit
Mm,
better. That quote I used to think of all the time: nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. It's
yeah.
you may really want this pizza or cheesecake or whatever it is right now, but think how much better you're going to feel when you do make the choices that you have set for yourself. Think how much better you're going to
Mhm.
feel when you're denying self in your marriage. And
Yeah.
there's a lot more closeness and peace and love and harmony in your home, and when you don't lose your temper with your kids, when you don't, think how much better all of those things feel when you actually do carry through and deny self in whatever way or practice that discipline in the moment. The
Mhm.
results that come from that are just good. They're good and they
Yeah.
make it worthwhile.
Yeah. And I've always been struck by how quickly you feel better about yourself with
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take the 2, 3, 4 months, really within a week, talking about eating better. Within a week, you start seeing results. Maybe you might not look different necessarily, but you feel
Mm-hmm.
different. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
your pants feel better or whatever. But like I said, it's not all about losing weight. It's just the one that comes to mind the most because that's the one our mind turns to at the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
But losing is motivational. Accomplishing is motivational. So just give ourselves a little bit of time and see results, and it helps to keep pushing us to make the better choices.
Mm-hmm.
So what were some, we talked about telling some of the things that we want to change about ourselves. What is something that you're hoping to change in this coming year?
Well, these aren't really my resolutions that I've come up with, the two specific things. These aren't those. I started thinking about like personal areas that I know I really need to change. And one of them was stop playing the blame game because I'm so good at that. And for things like if my life isn't hasn't unfolded the way I wanted it to, it's everybody else's fault because nobody is doing what they're supposed to be doing. Or if my clothes aren't fitting the way I want them to, it's because we've been really busy or we've been, with other people or, instead of acknowledging, no, nobody puts food in my mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nobody keeps me
Nobody's
from
feeding you.
getting my steps in except me. It's just so easy to say, keep up with, not blaming a person necessarily, but circumstances or scenarios or this time of life or whatever it might be. I really just need to say, if I'm unhappy with things the way they are in whatever area, the buck stops here. And I just need to own
Mm-hmm.
up to that. So that was one of them, stop playing the blame game. And my second one was move beyond planning. Because like we talk about the lists and the planners and a lot of times I'm really good about thinking about it, dreaming about it, doing all the research about it, and then never actually following through with it. And,
Yeah.
like painting the house, I might think about it. I might look at a bunch of different color possibilities and then never actually paint a single room that whole year. Or that's a
Yeah.
little trivial example, but I tend to do that. I'll think one of these days I'm going to, and I might even buy the supplies, and then never actually follow through and do it. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to move beyond planning and start taking action.
Yeah. Those are good.
Thanks. What are yours?
I think of, well, there's, of course, self discipline. And that, of course, means eating choices, exercise choices, but it's not just that. It's self discipline in my time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I stay pretty busy doing things that I should, but there's some things that I really need to be more self disciplined about my time, and I'm not. Um, my my financial record keeping is something that I want to have more self discipline about because you have like if you we used to have those checkbook registers, you'd write
Mm-hmm.
down each check as you wrote a check, and now you don't have checks anymore. We use credit cards, we pay them off every month, but
Mm-hmm.
so you have this statement that has all of your charges on there. And so I think to myself, well, it's all on there, I can track anything that way. It makes I just don't balance a checkbook anymore because we just don't
Mm-hmm.
do things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a result, when it comes time to do taxes or whatever, I'm scrambling a little bit to, because maybe there might be a charge for Home Depot, and maybe some of that is tax deductible and some is not, but because I haven't spent the time to mark it on the receipt or whatever. I know
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting kind of specific here, but I
Yeah.
just need some more self-discipline when it comes to record keeping, because in the long run, it sure will help me, but I just hate doing it. Also, because my husband hands me a wad of receipts that looks like, here's your
Oh,
receipts.
oh no.
He'll sometimes go to the trouble to smooth them out and hand them to me. But anyway, I digress slightly. but I want to have better self-discipline when it comes to all those things with my time, with food, money, with and even with mental attitudes. I think this is another thing that we can have self-discipline in when we let our mind wander.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's what might happen, my mind is wandering, if I don't do this, then this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and then it's going to all fall apart. Whereas we just rein it back in and say one step at a time, one thing at a time. So I think having that self-discipline in my mental attitudes, maybe even towards someone when it's someone I'm tempted to feel negatively about, but I've got to say, I'm not going to go there. That's not my business. Don't need to think about that. Just stop right there. Stop thinking about that. I was going to mention one of the things, this is kind of a specific suggestion when it comes to food. I used to do this a lot more than I do now, but I went through a good phase where I would eat just a little bit of something. I remember this very specifically in one place. Have you ever been to, it's a place called BJ's, and they have what's called a pizookie. It's a cookie that's they put it in a cast iron skillet and bring it out to you like that. And so you have this great big cookie with ice cream on top. And I mean, you could eat the whole thing. I tend to not be able to eat the whole thing, but I will let myself have one bite, maybe 2 bites, whatever. And then I take my tea glass and pour it on top of whatever's left. And I remember John being so mad at me because he wanted to finish off my cookie and I didn't want to be tempted by it anymore. So once my tea was poured all over it, I wasn't tempted by it anymore. So I used a moment of strength to help me in my moments of weakness that followed. But that has helped me in other times. And maybe I'm sure it's wasteful sometimes. But rather than me eating the whole thing, I just have used that at times to ruin. I mean, you can also sprinkle pepper all over something or whatever it is that makes something you don't want it anymore.
An appetite.
Do it. Just do it. Yeah. Ruin it for yourself. And it's kind of makes you laugh. It kind of makes you sad, but it's effective.
That's our advice of the day. Ruin it for yourself.
Yeah. That's going to be our tagline. Ruin it for yourself.
Yeah, that's quotable.
Anyway, that has to do with self-discipline. Another area that I would like to change is to think before I speak.
Oh, Carla. You picked the doozies.
I'm not one of those that's like, I'm not confrontational. So I'm not talking about bleh. I'm going to just say whatever I want to say. And I'm not shouting at someone. I'm not, the only one I might speak my mind to is John. And I'm not really bad about that. I'm talking about if someone says something, I'll immediately agree with them without really thinking about it. And I admire people that you can tell they think about it and then they say, well, why? Or I don't know. I'm not talking about being objectionable. I'm just talking about not being afraid to question things or to ask for more clarification or ask for an answer. And I know maybe that sounds a little bit trivial, but it's something that a lot of times I've finished with a conversation with somebody and I go away and go, why didn't I ask more about that? Why did I just automatically say, yeah, I know what you're talking about when I really didn't know what they were talking about? So I think that's just a habit that I have of just saying things mindlessly and not asking for clarification. So that's something that I'm going to try to be a little bit more intentional about. I also want to follow through. I also want to follow through more with things like I've got a lot of thank you notes that I need to write after the holidays. And there's times that I think about it and don't do it. I want to immediately, have it ready. Like what you're talking about, having your planner out. I would like to have thank you notes or thinking of you cards. This is something I can't tell you how many years I've thought about at the beginning of the year. I'm just going to have a stack of cards and stamps right there so that as soon as I think about it, I can write one out stick it in the mail and I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
Because while I'm not ever going to be that kind of person that expects a thank you note from anyone. I want to be thankful. I want to show my appreciation when someone goes to the trouble to think of me and to be nice about. I want to be thankful. So that's something. Thank you, being thankful and being thoughtful. Just and I know you're going to say, "Oh, you're thoughtful," because you say that sometimes. But I'm trying to think of an example. There's just lots of times that I think, "Oh, I should do this," and then I forget about it. And I just would like to follow through with some things like that. So those are mine that I would like to work on this year.
Those are very good. I think I could probably work on all of those too. Thanks for adding to my list.
Yeah. Well, you too added to mine. So change is tough, but it's worth it. It's when you think about God's plan for humanity, we change constantly. We grow from infancy through young adulthood to adulthood I mean, there's just constant change. The seasons change. Look outside and you can tell what season of the year because there is greenery outside or there's not greenery outside or it's just that's part of God's plan is change. So I know that he expects us. I mean, we need to always want to change to be what God wants us to be, but self-examination, self-reflection is always a good thing too.
Well, God designed us to be able to change. We sometimes think, well, I was brought up in a home like that, or, it's in my background, or that's who I am. But scientists have, now they've discovered this thing about our brains called neuroplasticity, which, we may have created these grooves and paths with our neurons, but with intention, we can change them and create new grooves and paths in our brain, and things that we've been doing a certain way, even for a long period of time, we can make those changes in our brain, in our physical body, just by being more intentional about it, thinking about it, getting enough sleep, doing those things that make it easier for us to do that in our brain. But God designed us that way, and it's interesting to me because scientists used to think that when you're young, you can change and be taught things and your brain is, moldable, palleable, or whatever. And then once you get to adulthood, it kind of gets set in its ways. But now they know that's not true. And well into adulthood and well into, maturity, your brain can still change. And I just think that's fascinating. God, as the creator, he knew that things would be hard, but not impossible, and even designed us to be able to make those changes.
You can teach an old dog new tricks then.
Exactly.
Well, I'll take your word for it because I think sometimes like technology, there's certain technology that I think I can't figure that out.
Well,
but it's not that I can't, it's that I don't want to take the time and the effort and the energy that it's going to make me expend to get there. Or maybe it's that I'm choosing not. I mean, there's other things that are more worth my time than doing whatever. So,
technology hates me. Speaking of technology, I think one of us is having some internet issues. Every now and then. I just want to apologize to those who are watching. I think the audio is still good, but I can see in the visual there's a lot of freezing of the screen and blurry, graininess. So that's been going on for the past several minutes. So we apologize for that. I'm thinking that might be a good idea. Do you have something good for you?
I completely forgot about something good for you.
Well, I thought of one.
About the topic. Did you?
I did, and I want to go ahead and share it because it kind of goes along with the start of the year, and your scripture writing group might appreciate this. But can you see this box? I hope it's showing up okay.
Yeah.
That picture right there is beautiful and kind of shows the colors. These are a set of pens called Ritech, WRITECH, Ritech. And it's liquid rollerball pen. It's a small needle, but the colors, there's 10 of them. The colors are called vintage. And so I was sitting next to Jennifer Harrison in Bible class about a week ago, and she was using these pens, and they are absolutely beautiful. Can you see those?
Ooh, yeah.
The colors, I used one of them and just fell in love. And I'd asked her to send me the link. And then last night at Bible class, she ended up giving me this box right here.
Sweet.
But they're beautiful, and you can find them on Amazon. I found them last night when I knew I wanted to share this with everybody. So I'll share the link for anybody, but it'd be fun for your scripture writing or writing in your daily planner or whatever, or writing your thoughtful thank you notes or whatever it is. These are the most beautiful colors and writes really smoothly, and they're not very expensive either.
They don't smear.
They don't. Well, I mean, I've only used it that one time in
yet.
Bible class, and I don't remember anything smearing, but
okay.
Really
I am
fun.
a sucker for new pens.
Oh, me too.
Always looking for the next good pen.
Yeah.
I like it has to be smooth. And you're saying they're smooth, so that's good. Well, good. That is something good for me. I'm going to have to go look that up now.
Let me just mention this before we get off. I mentioned the mosaic that my sister gave me. Today, my sister is having radiation.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to ask our listeners, her name is Christy Woodall, if you could say a prayer for her. She's going to have to be in isolation for the next week. By the time this comes out on Monday, she'll be smack dab in the middle of that week because she's radioactive, probably about ready to go crazy. But if you would pray for her, that it does what it's supposed to, and that she has good results from it, and just be with her as she goes through this battle.
Yeah.
I would appreciate
be praying
that.
for her and Bud and for you, because I know it's hard for you to.
Thanks.
I know you're worried about her, but
thanks. I love her very much.
Pray for her. Lots of people going through a lot of things right now.
Yes.
Always look forward to heaven when there's not the worries.
Amen to that.
All right. Well, it's been a good discussion. I have no idea how long it was, but before we completely lose internet, we will wrap this up. And until next time,
keep looking up. Happy New Year. Oh,
wait. We need to say, for those of you who are new, we have a group on Facebook. It's just called Looking Up with Kathy and Carla. So we'd love for you to join us over there. We try to post things that we talk about in the prior weeks or in that week's episode. We'll post links and pictures and have some discussion, and always love to hear what everyone is thinking about and talking about. So join us there and on Instagram, and we are very appreciative to our listeners, and thank you for being with us and listening and joining in. We love everyone and love to hear from you.
Yes.
Now, until next week.
Keep looking up.
All right. That's
I'll talk to you.
I love you. I'll talk to you soon.